Right, so hopefully this is the video. Now, what I've done is I've worked through, I've got a list, this hopefully the final list. And I've worked through all of the bits and pieces that I need to do to get the thing started. Things can wait, like sports cat and getting all watertight and intake pipes, wipers, all that kind of stuff. That can all wait. I've done a few bits and pieces, tightened up, got the wideband all nice and tight. I put a vent pipe in now for the breather pipe, just a simple into the inlet, create a bit of vacuum. Flared the ends of like the coolant pipes just to make sure they're all nice and tight. Made sure everything's tight in there. So mechanically now it's up together. I put power steering fluid in it. I just need to put some coolant in there, and that will be ready to go, ready to start. What I'm going to do is push the car out, get the interior back together first, I think, just so it's all up together. I'll get the laptop on there, and then I'll start doing the electrical tests of things like injectors, coils, that kind of stuff. I managed to get it working, tested, obviously when I had the problems with the wiring, but now that's all sorted. I just need to double check, make sure that's all working. So that will be the next step, get this out, test all of the electrical bits. Right, so with everything loaded up and the new map put onto the ECU, I'm just going to go through and do a few electrical tests. Here you can see I've got the auxiliary 7, which is my cooling fan. And I'm just going to put that into test mode. And that should trigger the fan, which it does. Lovely. So then if I turn this back onto the fan, okay. So yeah, so that's good. I'm just going to go through and check all the functions of all of the units. What I've done is I have changed some of the calibrations to the temperature sensors. Oil temp before was showing 90 degrees, which obviously it wasn't, now it's 20. Coolant temp, engine coolant temp still could go up a little bit, but I'm not sure how far out it is at low down. Obviously, I'm not going to need that. Well, I am going to need it, but not to get it running. I'm just going to go through and test all of the bits. I have got a fault code for the wide band, which I'm going to need to sort out. It might just hopefully just be a fuse not plugged in. But yeah, it's just a case of working through them one by one, just making sure everything's all good. Okay, beautiful, much better than last time. So now, as you can see here, I have got no fault codes. We might not be able to see because it might not focus, but yeah, no errors. Beautiful. It was just me. I left a fuse out, or a couple of fuses out. Luckily I made all the notes, so I knew where the fuses went. All done. Right, so what I've also gone and done is, as I say, I've gone through and I've tested all of the bits and pieces on here. The only thing I haven't tested is a fuel pump, because I don't want any fuel in the system just yet. Just in case I need to muck around or whatever else. That's going to be one of the last things to test. All the fans work, all the boost controller works. I get a sensible reading from like the wideband. Oil pressure, oil temperature, so yeah, we're all good. So next thing to do, what I've already done is I have calibrated the throttle position and the accelerator position just in the e-throttle. I'm not sure if you'll be able to actually see most of this. I'm not sure if it's going to focus. But yeah, I've got all the sort of units calibrated on the side here. I've roughed in a table for accelerator position just to begin with. No errors, I'm so glad. Right, so that's all calibrated. The map sensor is calibrated. What I need to do now is set base timing, which is basically going to mean I have to take the spark plugs out to make it easier to turn over. I need to rig up a timing light and crank the engine over and make sure and set the timing to the TDC basically, and make sure my timing and my offset timing is all correct. So that is going to be the next thing I'm going to do. I may make up a little dial gauge to fit onto the crank pulley to carry out the timing, because it's easier to read on that than it is anywhere else. So yeah, I might make up a pulley just to make it a bit easier, but that'll be the next stage to do. I'm going to leave it till tomorrow now, because we're starting to get a little bit late in the day. But wiring, all that, beautiful, sorted, lovely. We're on the final stretch now, and to get it all running. Still need to calibrate the dash. I'm just looking now, other things I need to do. Still need to calibrate the dash, because that's not set up like indicators and stuff. But that's just a case of software, I'm hoping. Yeah, I've got coolant in there as well. Yeah, here we go. Let's get this timing sorted. Right, so first thing with this timing, I got an old crank pulley there, just for mock up. Made a acrylic disc that I've just stuck some paper over for marking. I made it as big as possible around the center hole for the center bolt. Yeah, just you can see I just made up a little jig here for the sander. Put it in, spun it around, grind it down, make sure it's circle. Then this I'm going to, because there's no attachment on the pulley itself, so what I'm probably going to end up doing is just putting some like sticky tape on it, probably just put it on, because it's only going to be cranking speed basically. Yeah, and then when this is on the car, I'll put a little line when I know where the top dead center is, and put a pointer on the engine so that it's lined up, so when I do a flashlight, or the timing light, I will know and make sure that the spark is in the right place. So yeah, that's the idea. I'm going to get this attached onto the car now. Right, so got the dial stuck on there, just down here. So we've got the pulley on the crank. As you can see, it's very tight, as big as I can make it. It's just nearly touching this other pulley. And then I've just made a little pointer out of welding wire, just attached onto the engine. And that will, yeah, that's just there now. So that gives me a reference point. So with that done, now I need to find true top dead center. So I'll whip the spark plugs out. I will measure the distance down to the piston as I rotate the engine over, and I'll be marking it on this. The ideal way is to go forward rotation, mark the position, then go back and mark the position. Now obviously you don't want to be going back too much on the crank pulley, so I'll see if I can get around it, but that is what I'm going to do, and it should leave me 2 marks at top dead center. I'll mark them both, and then the middle of it will be exactly TDC, and that will get my marks then on the bottom pulley. So that's what I'm going to do now. Right, so this is what I've knocked up to try and get the TDC. I've got a bit of tube. This sits down onto the piston, and that is cut roughly 1 millimeter too long, roughly, to be level with this top plate. So what I'm going to do is, then I've got this secondary plate, I'm going to just bolt onto the top, just there. That will bolt down, clamp shut. So then when I turn the engine over and it comes up and hits, this will be a dead stop, and I can mark it on the bottom pulley down there, and then I can take it off, go past TDC, put it back on, and come back the other way, and it will give me the angles of both going like TDC before and after, basically, because there will be a little moment at the top of TDC where it will just sort of float, and then before it comes back down. So when I've got the 2 marks, the middle mark will be the true TDC. So that's yeah, that's basically the theory behind it. So yeah, I'm just going to get this marked up now. Right, so first method didn't work. This plate wasn't quite rigid enough to form a complete stop. It just flexed a little bit. So I had the old dial indicator out and finding TDC, and then got it marked up, both bits on the front there, and then the middle of those two little marks in the middle is going to be the true TDC. So that's going to be the mark I'm going to be working to. Yeah, right, on to the next stage. Right, so I did end up taking the belt off, just because there was a secondary pulley up in here that was just maybe touching. You can see now we've got that lined up on the top dead center. Next thing I'm going to do is be able to create a spark. Now, what I used to be able to do without this coil pack cover was get an original lead, plug it onto the spark plug, and put the end in the coil pack. But now with this cover on, I can't get all the way down there. I could take all the cover off, I suppose, but I'm not going to. So instead what I'm going to do is just rig up somewhere to put a spark plug externally, maybe on here, so it will earth, put the lead on the spark plug, and then I can put the lead in the coil pack, and that will give me my source for my timing light. So I'm going to rig up something for that now. Right, so a couple of little things. I've put a little clip on the pulley just to stop that plastic ring falling off, hopefully just to keep it nice and secure. And I've made up a little spark plug holder, just a bit of copper wire bolted to the head to get the ignition source. I've disconnected the other coils because I don't need those. And then just to double check that it works, I've got the ignition test on here. Turn it on. You can hear and see I'm getting a spark. So that is what I'm going to use to set the timing. Just turn this off. Lovely. So yeah, now I'm going to go through the triggers. I'm going to set up my timing light. Well, not mine, I borrowed it. Yeah, get that set up. And I'll get someone to crank it over, and while I flash the pointer and make sure that my offset is set correctly in the timing. So yeah, I'll get that done now. Alright, so I've got two obvious problems. I'm not getting a spark, for one, and this could be the reason why. For some reason I seem to have wired up my crank sensor signal onto trigger 2, not onto trigger 1, which I don't know how I've managed that. I thought I thoroughly checked this wiring. Yeah. And second problem is, I don't know if you can see, the drop in voltage should be going up the other way. So the crank sensor is wired round backwards, so I just need to swap the pins, and I need to swap trigger 1 to trigger 2. Yeah, I'm not sure where I went wrong there, but I need to get that swapped over. I don't have a signal either showing on the crank sensor, or the cam sensor, sorry. Maybe because when I sort this out, the filtering is slightly different on the sensor. But let's get that sorted first. I should have at least a spark when I try to crank it. So let's get that sorted. I just have to take the multi-plug out of the ECU, swap the pins over, take the plug off the crank sensor, swap those pins over. So it'll take me 5 minutes, well, probably more than 5 minutes, but let's get that done. Right, so I've got the scope function set up again. I'm just going to give this another crank over and see what happens. So yeah, I didn't obviously didn't let it load or didn't let it capture properly. So that's the signal now that we're getting. We're getting a rise on trigger 1. So all the cranks now reading. So hopefully now we should be able to pick up something. Maybe. So I've got a crank cam signal, which I might need to sort out, change the filter on that. But yeah, let's see if I can get this timing, base timing set now. So that's the offset set on the base timing, just at while cranking speed. Turns out this one was 61 degrees I needed to enter into it. Yeah, you just lock the degrees at 0. I put in 90 to begin in, or minus 90 on this one, and then with the timing light, just works around on the pulley just until the top dead center mark lined up with the pointer. And yeah, so I started, well, it was a rough guess. And yeah, so that's now all set, so that's all done. So now, what I will need to do, I mean, because I had no idea where it was before, it's all the custom triggers on it. So I was shooting in the dark really, so that's good. But anyway, it's done. So now I need to rebuild this. Get all the injectors plugged back in, all the spark plugs back in, coil packs back in. And then I might see if it fires. I will check the timing light again with it running and get it locked. I'll probably lock it at 10 degrees with it running. But yeah, that's all good. So yeah, I'll get this back together now and go from there. Right, so here we go. I'm going to attempt to start. So I've locked the timing at 10 degrees. I've put everything back together. I've tested the fuel system, pump all works. I'm showing no signs of leaks, which obviously is all good. I've got my timing light ready just to quickly check it, because I can't have this running for long. Because I've got no alternator belt or anything like that on there. And also I'm not sure about that plastic pulley, if it's going to fall off. So we'll give it a quick go and we'll see if it starts. Okay, so not on the first one. So now what I need to do is just this by 360 degrees. So we got 299, enter. Right, let's give that another quick go. Well, very briefly, sounds like it probably needs some fuel, but that is a good start. So let's quickly get on the fuel. All right, and I'm just going to quickly adjust this, put the camera down, and I'll film it again second time. Right, so battery went flat, which is no good. I do have only have a little raised battery on there, which is really good. But when it comes to obviously continuous tries and cranking, it just can't hold the power for too long. So that is now on charge, which kind of draws a stop to the day, unfortunately. But what I'm going to do is unfortunately leave it till the next video for you guys to see it all start up. And I'm going to get this rebuilt down this side. I'm going to transfer a mark onto the crank pulley for top dead center. Now I've set it with the bigger wheel, which obviously gives me a better resolution of where TDC is. When I take it off and mark it on the smaller pulley, it's just going to make sure it's not moving, it's not floating about basically from its current position. So that will be fine, just for testing that side of it. But again, with the battery being so small, I want the alternator all connected up, I want the water pump connected up, and I can run it for a longer period of time when it does fire up. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to get this all rebuilt, so hopefully start the next video, which is starting it up and getting it idling, and that's where I can progress from there. So cheers for watching. Had some good results this time, a little bit of troubleshooting, but yeah, I'll see you next time for it running.